This is CBC Here and Now.
Newfoundland and Labrador, you've done it again. Our vaccination rate for 5 to 11-year-olds is the highest in North America.
COVID restrictions are easing once again despite 2 more deaths in the province today.
It's hot, then it's cold. It rains, then it snows. It freezes, then it thaws, which doesn't make for great conditions for skating on ponds like this one.
I think that everybody should be very, very careful. I know that here on the Avalon just a couple of days ago, most of the waterways were open.
We're going to learn a little bit about ice safety coming up.
Quick-moving winter storm the story tonight. However, it will end as rain for parts of the province.
Welcome to Here and Now. I'm Carolyn Stokes. Thanks so much for joining us. We're airing a little later this evening and for the next 2 weeks due to the Olympics. So let's dive in with the latest on COVID-19. More restrictions are easing in the province. Peter Cowan is standing by in the newsroom with more.
It was only yesterday that we moved to alert level 3, but now the province is already laying out the plans for easing restrictions more next week. This will happen in 3 key areas: for sports, for long-term care homes, and for religious gatherings. But it's important to point out the changes won't happen until the weekend. So let's take a look at what's changing. First, formal gatherings. There's now 50% capacity at the venue. No limit on the actual number of people. So this is for things like weddings and funerals. Bars and restaurants don't change capacity. They're at 50%, still no dancing. Theaters, bingo halls, and cinemas are at half capacity, and food is allowed as long as the bubbles are distanced. They're also easing restrictions for long-term and personal care homes, so they can go from 1 designated visitor to 2. Residents are also now going to be allowed to leave for day trips, and hairdressers and volunteers are going to be allowed in again. These rules are expected to come into effect on Thursday. Now let's talk about religious gatherings. Last night on the show you heard concerns from churches about being capped at 50 people. They're now allowed to be at 50% capacity if they use the vaccine passport. It's only 25% if they don't. Starting next week, amateur sports can compete again, but only within the same reason, and no tournaments are going to be allowed. So why did this move happen so quickly? Well, both the Premier and the Chief Medical Officer of Health said today they're looking at the evidence from the past week and they feel it's safe to open up.
As we move into year 3 of the pandemic, we are acutely aware that the public health restrictions have taken a toll on many people in many ways. Where there is capacity to ease restrictions, we want to do so in a timely manner.
I'm hearing from more and more of you lately that you're simply done with COVID. And trust me, we all want to be. Fortunately, because of the evidence, our epidemiology, and your hard work, we are able to open things a little faster than before.
Now you may notice there was no talk about changes in alert level. That's because the province is actually dropping all the alert level system. Dr. Fitzgerald said today it's confusing, especially as they change some of those individual measures.
It's difficult to really have that system apply appropriately at this point, and we felt, we were getting lots of feedback that people were trying to make things fit with the alert levels, and it was just causing more confusion, and so we don't want that to happen. We just want people to be aware of what the restrictions are, so we feel this is probably the easiest and cleanest way to do that.
So today's announcement came as the province announced 2 more deaths, a woman over 90 in Central and a man in the Western region who was in his 70s. There are also 23 people in hospital because of COVID-19, but the Premier stressed today that this disease might not become any more severe than the flu, thanks to the high level of vaccinations and boosters, especially for people who are over 50.
High rates of boosters for those individuals, we know that that provides at least a 98% protection against severe outcomes. And some of the early evidence is suggesting that with the high rates of boosters in those vulnerable populations and demographics, that we could reduce it to an influenza-like statistic. I hesitate to use the word statistic, though, because any loss of life is an individual. It's a family member.
So with that high level of protection, when are they looking at easing restrictions further? Well, generally, Dr. Fitzgerald said they're going to look at making changes every 2 weeks if they continue to see steadily falling, or at least steady, hospitalizations and testing results. Carolyn?
Thanks, Peter. And as he mentioned, starting next week, amateur hockey teams can compete within their own region. The president of Hockey NL says it's an unexpected but welcome change.
It was certainly surprising news this afternoon, but it is very positive news, great news for hockey at all levels in our province. Cross region competition will not be permitted. Competition within our regions, though, will allow teams from different associations to play against each other. We still do not have tournaments, but hopefully as the year progresses, that will come to pass as well.
And good news for pro hockey fans. They can watch tomorrow night's Growlers game in person. Starting tomorrow, fans can return to the Mary Brown Center for the Growlers game against the Maine Mariners. There will be several restrictions, though. Seating capacity is limited and Vax passes will be required. Masks must be worn at all times during the game, and no food or beverages will be available. Plus, the stadium says season ticket holders, package holders, and single game ticket holders should not expect to be seated in their exact seats or sections.
After a quiet couple of days, things are about to get a little bit messy for parts of the province as we head through the overnight and through parts of the day tomorrow. Let's take a look at what's going on. We've got a winter storm making its way across the maritime provinces as we speak, and that is going to bring in some snow, bringing lots of snow and rain to parts of the maritime provinces, but that is going to bring snow for a good chunk of the island as we head through the night tonight. Number of winter storm warnings along the south coast, rainfall warnings, wind warnings for the Avalon, and then those wind warnings do extend up across the west coast, and then blowing snow advisories for parts of Labrador. So as we head through the night tonight, we are going to see that snow move in, quickly change over to rain as we get into the early morning hours for the east. I'll have the full details coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, the RNC remained tight-lipped about details of an ongoing murder investigation. As we reported last night, there is a nationwide arrest warrant for suspect Sheldon Hibbs, who was last seen in Alberta. The 26-year-old is wanted on second-degree murder charges in connection to the death of Michael King. King's body was found in May in the Waterford Valley area of St. John's. Today, police confirmed that King and his alleged killer did know each other. Few other details were given, but they did hint at a link with the Edmonton Police Service.
The RNC has strong partnerships with our policing agencies across the country, and we often rely on each other to assist in investigations. In this particular case, we worked very closely with the Edmonton Police Service, and would also like to recognize them for their assistance with this investigation.
Now, Sheldon Hibbs is described as having several notable tattoos, including an image of a switchblade on his jaw, the words "Truth Hurts" above his right eye, and roses on his throat. One other news, a dentist with offices in this province and in Halifax has admitted to letting a guard perform dental surgery on an inmate. The prisoner was from the Bishops Falls Correctional Centre, and the incident happened at a Gander clinic in 2020. Louis Bourget made the admission through an agreed statement of facts to the province's dental board. He says 2 guards accompanied patient Blair Harris into the practice. While Harris was sedated, the dentist allowed one of the guards, Ronald McDonald, to extract teeth, while the other guard recorded and posted the video to social media. Regulatory boards in this province and Nova Scotia briefly suspended the dentist. He was also fined. He's expected to appear in provincial Supreme Court in March on charges of aggravated assault and assault with a weapon, along with the guard. Well, we have more information tonight on Hydro's decision to extend the life of the Holyrood generating station. As Terry Roberts reports, one critic of the Muskrat Falls project says closing Holyrood at any point in the future would be disastrous.
His name is Des Sullivan, and for years he's been a loud critic of Muskrat Falls.
Muskrat Falls was an act of deceit.
His latest source of agitation, any suggestion to decommission the half-century-old thermal generating station at Holyrood.
I think it would be a complete act of insanity to close Holyrood generating station.
Holyrood will be needed as a backup in the muskrat era, says Sullivan.
That is the only alternative source of supply for the province in the event of an LIL failure, Labrador Island Link failure.
Hydro confirmed this week it will delay its plan to decommission Holyrood, which is capable of producing nearly 500 megawatts of power. Holyrood had been set for decommissioning for next year. Now that won't happen until at least the spring of 2024. That's because experts haven't yet perfected the software needed to operate the Labrador Island Link, that 1,100-kilometer, $4 billion extension cord that will bring muskrat power to the Avalon. And a recent external review questioned whether the line is as robust as project leaders had boasted. That concern intensified when an ice storm last year caused damage and took crews weeks to repair.
Now you can imagine we had dark ENL going on for 1 week with major social and economic fallout. Imagine a crisis lasting 6 weeks or longer.
Closing Holyrood was one of the selling points for Muskrat because it relies on dirty and expensive Bunker C fuel oil as opposed to the non-emitting hydropower from Labrador. But this critic says that pitch was a fantasy.
Here we are today, $15 billion spent, and we're still talking about power security. Someone has to take leadership here, Terry.
If there's a long-term future for Holyrood, the brass at Hydro haven't said so. The public utility has been working on a reliability strategy for the power grid for a few years, with recommendations expected later this year.
We have to decide as a province, what is the right balance of cost and reliability? Do we do some upgrades to what we currently have? Do we invest in actual backup to the well? If we do we back it up fully? Do we back it up partially?
Jennifer Williams says it's possible to make a power grid that's 100% reliable, but she says we'll never be able to afford it. So the key word here is balance. What we don't know is whether that balance includes Holyrood continuing to belch carbon emissions into the atmosphere for many years to come. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, with all the wild changes in our weather, a safety group is urging people to use caution before stepping onto the ice. Here now's Jeremy Eaton connected with the Newfoundland and Labrador Life-Saving Society for some advice.
Lacing up your skates and hitting the ice. Not a bad way to spend a cool afternoon. At the Loop in St. John's, no fears of this ice giving away. But out on the ponds, it's a different story.
I think that everybody should be very, very careful. I know that here on the Avalon just a couple of days ago, most of the waterways were open.
Each and every year, groups like the Life-Saving Society preach ice safety to avoid situations like this simulation.
It's an ongoing battle. It's a public education thing that we at the Life-Saving Society take very seriously.
And with this winter's weather, the freeze and thaw, rain then snow, it's a recipe for unsafe ice.
Well, you need a consistent temperature that's below zero to form the ice for quite a few days and remain cold then for the rest of the season.
For walking, skating, or ice fishing, Fordham says you're looking for 10 centimeters in thickness, 12 centimeters for an ATV or snowmobile, and at least 20 or 30 centimeters before you even consider driving a car on the ice.
One thing about the snowmobiling, though, is that in the nighttime, if you see a set of tracks going across the waterway, don't necessarily follow them because, it may not be safe up ahead, some distance ahead.
The Life-Saving Society suggests being prepared before heading out there.
If you're going to venture out on the ice, make sure that, don't go by yourself, have a buddy, follow a trip plan, have the necessary safety equipment with you, and that would include, most importantly, a flotation device of some sort.
And if the ice below your feet gives way, here's Fordham's advice.
Do go through the water, it's very important not to gasp right away. Having that PFD or life jacket on will bob you into the water, but it'll bob you up pretty quick to avoid a lot of water being taken into your lungs.
Giving you time to crawl back out the same way you came, roll out of the hole, and stay low. And if there's any doubt, wait for colder temperatures, and don't go out. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
Another round of snow on the way for the Avalon. However, it doesn't look like it's going to last very long. We've got a warm up this week.
This weather update is brought to you by the NL 511 app. Know before you go. Check road conditions, highway cameras, and the provincial plow tracker with the NL 511 app.
Ashley's here now to look at the forecast. It was a quiet day in St. John's weather-wise, kind of a lull, I guess, before another round of messy weather hits us.
Yeah, it was a nice little break from the weather, but definitely going to see things deteriorate pretty quickly as we head through the evening hours tonight. Let's take a look at what's going on. We do have a system that is working its way across the Maritime provinces as we speak, and going to bring some snow as we head through the next couple of hours and the overnight for a good chunk of the island. Now, a number of warnings in place, wind warnings, west coast, all along the south coast as well, including the Avalon or the southern Avalon, a rainfall warning for all of the Avalon, as well as a winter storm warning for the south coast, Burin Peninsula, and then a blowing snow advisory for the northern peninsula and southeastern Labrador. Wreckhouse wind warning in place as well. You're going to see those winds pretty gusty tonight, anywhere from as high as 140 kilometers per hour. Now, temperatures tonight should stay in and around what we're seeing right now, and they will warm up though as we get to the early morning hours, particularly for eastern Newfoundland, and that is when we're going to see that change over to rain. So future tracker here, time out the precipitation as well as the wind gusts, because it is going to get windy. So we should see that snow start in the next couple of hours, get really heavy at times for most of the island, in fact, and it will be accompanied by some pretty gusty winds, anywhere from 30 to 70 kilometers per hour, which means we will likely see blowing snow through the overnight. By the time we get to 3-4 in the morning, most of eastern Newfoundland and along the south coast should change over to rain, which will likely be heavy at times, particularly for the Avalon. And again, those winds will be gusty out of the southeast, anywhere from 70 to 90 kilometers per hour. Now, most of central Newfoundland will end as some flurries and or drizzle into the afternoon, but we're going to see that snow continue for the northern peninsula, west coast, and then redevelop again for the southern areas of the island as we get into tomorrow afternoon. Southeastern Labrador, you're going to see your snow through a good chunk of the afternoon as well. It should end by the time we get to 7-8 o'clock tomorrow evening. Now, as far as snowfall accumulations go, mainly the higher elevations will see the highest amounts, particularly along the southern areas. As you see 20 to 30 centimeters there, that will likely be the higher elevations. Closer to the surface, towards the coast, you can expect between 10 to 15 centimeters. Even in and around the metro area, the higher elevations will likely see the most amount of snow. Now, as we head through tomorrow, like I said, southeastern Labrador, that's when you're going to start to see your snow, and you're looking at about 10 to 15 centimeters by the time that's all said and done. Unfortunately, more rain on the way as well. Southern areas of the Avalon looking at between 20 to 30 millimeters. Otherwise, the metro may see somewhere between 10 to 20. Temperatures tomorrow will be on the plus side of the mercury, between 3 to 6 degrees, a little cooler for the northern peninsula. Again, those winds staying quite brisk through the day, and then even up across Labrador, Mary's Harbour, hovering around 0 degrees. Things will quiet down as we get into Thursday, but temperatures stay near or above 0. So all that snow will melt, particularly for St. John's if there is any left. And then as we look ahead, still looking at that warm up, Saturday and Sunday at this point looking a bit rainy, between 3 to 5 degrees. Similar warm up for central, western Newfoundland. You'll likely see your temperatures dip back down on Sunday, but it is looking unsettled. For eastern Labrador, some flurries by the time we get to the weekend, and a dip in those temperatures for Lab West again, back down to about minus 21 on Sunday. Taking a look at the weather photo for the day. This is a beautiful shot of a snowflake. Thank you for that. If you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
We believe there's a world in 15 years where every single athlete, whether they're a hobbyist or they're professional, is going to have an artificial intelligence coach that's available 100% of the time.
A new tech company developing AI sports coaching decides to base itself in St. John's. We'll find out why they say the future of sports is virtual. When Mike Winters wanted to launch his new business, he came home to St. John's to do it. Teaming up with a former race car driver, his new company, Trophy.ai, is all about coaching, but not in person. Whether it's racing, swimming, or basketball, he believes the future of amateur and professional sports is online.
So our company is focused on developing AI coaching for sports. We believe there's a world in 15 years where every single athlete, whether they're a hobbyist or they're professional, is going to have an artificial intelligent coach that's available 100% of the time, that's helping them get better at their sport. That's the vision. We want to get to that. We think that's a massive opportunity. Again, it's going to change the entire world of coaching in sports. But on the way there, what we want to do is focus on esports. Because now, to be clear, esports are really people who are competitive at video games. We're starting with sim racing. If you think about how hard this problem can be. Sim racing and motorsport in general is a lot easier because you have a lot simpler input systems. You have a wheel and you have pedals. And also you don't interact with your opponents that much. You're just racing with your opponents. Actually, I met my business partner. I wanted coaching in sim racing. So I contacted Scott, who was just sort of starting his YouTube career. And we met and we hit it off. And we built what is now the largest online racing school in the world. So I get asked why relocate to Newfoundland all the time. And I think a lot of people don't realize Newfoundland's actually a fantastic place to bring and start a company right now. We have fantastic people who are working hard, who are smart. We have a great education system in Memorial University that's graduating a lot of really good young students. We have a fantastic, right now the government is really supportive of tech startups, and that's a big help for getting more companies here and giving us an edge kicking off. We're planning to hire 15 people over the next year. That's a combination of software engineers, business, so we have marketing, some sales, as well as what we call operations, so that can be customer service, community management, and support. Again, and hopefully within 5 years, we would like to have at least 100 people in the province. We're swinging at this with the biggest bat we have, with everything we got. We hope to be at least 100 people and jobs in the province in 5 years. I hope we're training a Formula One driver at the same time, and then we hope to just be crossing the edge of, again, teaching someone how to get better at a hockey or a tennis. We're playing with the data, we're experimenting, and we're starting to move into that space.
Well, that's it for Here and Now tonight. Big day tomorrow for curling fans and really for anyone in this province. Team Canada, led by Brad Gushue, will be facing off against Denmark in Beijing tomorrow morning. So I'm sure a lot of people will be watching to see what happens there. Well, that wraps up this Tuesday edition of Here and Now. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us, and hope you can join us again tomorrow night.